Imagine a peaceful morning suddenly erupting into chaos. This was the scene on February 28, 1997. A bank robbery in North Hollywood escalated into a fierce gun battle. This incident changed law enforcement forever. Let's dive into the North Hollywood Shootout and what unfolded that day. On that fateful day, two heavily armed robbers entered a Bank of America. They wore body armor and carried automatic weapons. Their plan was simple: steal as much money as possible. What they didn't expect was the police response. As they began their robbery, officers arrived quickly. However, regular handguns were no match for the robbers' firepower. Police were outgunned, outmaneuvered, and in shock. It was clear that a new approach was necessary for situations like this. As the gunfight intensified, the robbers left the bank. They engaged in a street battle with the police. More than 300 officers responded, but they were still feeling overwhelmed. Their tactics and equipment were not prepared for this level of violence. To turn the tide, officers used armored vehicles. They brought in weapons designed for high-risk situations. Special units like SWAT stepped up their game. Their goal was to outsmart the robbers and ensure public safety. But how could officers improve their response? Experts began analyzing the incident afterwards. They sought solutions to prevent this from happening again. This led to advanced training for police forces nationwide. Imagine if this could happen again. To avoid disaster, departments enhanced their policies. Quick response protocols were put in place. Training now includes handling automatic weapons and tactical scenarios. The shootout was a wake-up call for law enforcement. It changed police tactics across the country. Today, officers are more prepared thanks to those lessons learned. To summarize, the North Hollywood Shootout exposed significant flaws in police response. It highlighted the need for better training and equipment. Law enforcement agencies have since adapted their approaches for better outcomes. Feel compelled to learn more about law enforcement advancements? Subscribe to our channel for deep dives into similar incidents. Join us next time as we explore another riveting topic. Stay informed and stay safe. On that chaotic morning, the sound of gunfire echoed through North Hollywood as civilians dove for cover, capturing the real horror of the situation. Many peered out from behind their cars, shocked and frightened, while local news crews set up cameras to broadcast the unfolding drama live. The sight of armored vehicles rolling in and police officers taking cover highlighted the urgent need for a new way to address crimes where sheer firepower was involved. The intensity of the battle was palpable, with bullets ricocheting off nearby buildings as police officers shouted commands amidst the chaos. Many onlookers clutched their phones, documenting a scene they'd never imagined witnessing in their community, a vivid reminder of the violent reality lurking beneath the surface of everyday life. As the sounds of sirens grew louder, a sense of urgency surged through the officers, compelling them to strategize and regroup under the tremendous pressure of an evolving situation. Amidst the turmoil, the robbers maneuvered with surprising agility, relying on their advanced weaponry and training to maintain the upper hand. They exchanged fire with the police, each shot echoing the desperate need for a resolution. Daring moves like taking cover behind civilian vehicles only intensified the fear around them. Meanwhile, officers frantically worked to coordinate a plan, desperately trying to establish a safety perimeter to protect the innocent bystanders remaining in the area. The street was transformed into a battlefield, with shattered glass and debris painting a grim picture of a community under siege. Their radios buzzed with urgency as commands flew back and forth, straining the already tense situation. The chaos reached a boiling point when the robbers attempted to flee on foot, sprinting into the nearby streets. Officers swiftly established a block while trying to minimize further injuries, but the fear and unpredictability made it nearly impossible to control the scene. As the robbers made their way down the block, they fired indiscriminately, causing civilians to panic and seek shelter in nearby stores. The exchange of gunfire was relentless, and bullet casings littered the asphalt, a stark reminder of the violence unfolding just moments before. Desperate for reinforcements, law enforcement called for backup, knowing they had to end this standoff before more lives were lost. With the situation spiraling, every second counted as officers focused intently on tactics to disarm the robbers. As the tension escalated, a helicopter buzzed above, its spotlight illuminating the havoc below. Officers utilized the aerial view to track the robbers' movements, reporting positions to ground units in a frantic attempt to corner them. With each passing moment, the streets echoed with the sounds of gunfire, creating an overwhelming cacophony that underscored the urgency of the situation. Behind the barricades, officers took a deep breath, steeling themselves for the confrontation that lay ahead. The North Hollywood Shootout serves as a crucial lesson in the evolution of law enforcement tactics and equipment, reshaping the future of police responses to high-stakes situations. By highlighting the failures and reactions of that day, we understand how preparation and training can foster safer communities. Stay informed as the story continues to evolve. As the gunfire continued to rain down, officers quickly formed smaller teams to flank the robbers from different angles. With their hearts racing and adrenaline pumping, they communicated through urgent whispers, each acknowledging the life-threatening risks involved. The specialized equipment they now carried, including more powerful weapons and protective gear, felt like a lifeline amidst the chaos, promising hope against the robbers' unfathomable firepower. The collective determination among the officers grew stronger, fueled by the imperative to protect the innocent and reclaim their community from the grip of violence. Tactical plans were drawn up in a matter of seconds, with officers ready to act on their leaders' commands, understanding that every moment counted in this high-stakes confrontation. The moment of truth approached as they moved with precision, their eyes scanning for clear sight lines. Each officer knew the stakes heightened with every strategic step they took, understanding that hesitation could lead to dire consequences. Suddenly, a flash of movement caught their attention. One of the robbers darted between vehicles, oblivious to the organized response gearing up to intercept him. Officers quickly adjusted their positions, their focus sharp and unwavering, as every second seemed to stretch into eternity. Breathing deep, they reminded themselves of their mission, to end the threat without further endangering innocent lives. The tension was palpable, a collective awareness of the weight of the moment. With a swift command, the officers surged forward, channeling their training and instincts to regain control of the scene. As they advanced, the sound of their boots echoed against the asphalt, a stark contrast to the chaos that surrounded them. Each movement was choreographed, reflecting the extensive simulations practiced for high-stakes encounters like this one. Adrenaline coursed through their veins, but their resolve remained unyielding, knowing that the safety of bystanders depended on their every action. In the heat of the moment, an officer spotted an opening. He aimed steadily and fired, targeting the robbers with precision. The shot rang out, punctuating the tension in the air and drawing the attention of the remaining attackers. With these pivotal moments unfolding, the stakes escalated even further, underscoring the urgent need to resolve the situation before more lives were irrevocably affected. Amidst the turmoil, the armed robbers, realizing the noose was tightening, exchanged frantic glances and decided to make a desperate move. They raced toward an alley, seeking refuge and the element of surprise. As officers closed in, their hearts raced with the urgency of the situation. The robbers' retreat triggered a surge of adrenaline among the pursuers. They knew this was their moment to turn the tide. With firearms at the ready, officers prepared to follow, but not without indicating their positions and ensuring that everyone was on the same page. Strategizing quickly, they aimed to seal off the alleyway, anticipating the robbers would be cornered. Communication was key now, as shouts were relayed over the crackling radio, urging nearby units to converge around the exit points. The sound of footsteps pounding the pavement filled the silence that followed, a reminder of the precarious balance between chaos and control. Officers adjusted their grips on their weapons, bracing themselves for whatever lay ahead as they advanced cautiously, seeking resolution in a harrowing situation. As the officers surged into the alley, their heightened senses were acutely aware of the dangerous game unfolding. The shadows stretched ominously against the brick walls, creating an eerie atmosphere that enhanced their focus. Every corner could conceal threats. Their radios buzzed with frantic updates while they maintained silence among themselves, the quiet intensity of their breaths mingling with the distant echoes of chaos. With swift hand signals, they established a perimeter, closing off potential escape routes while moving deeper into the dimly lit space. Suddenly, a loud crash reverberated, jolting the team. One of the robbers had thrown a trash can, trying to create a diversion. Without missing a beat, officers readied themselves, the scent of urgency permeating the air as they prepared for an imminent encounter. The moment hung heavy in the air as officers steadied their breath, straining to listen for the slightest movement. Shadows darted among the alley's recesses, and tension thickened with each heartbeat. One officer peered around a corner, squinting into the dim light, before signaling for the team to advance cautiously. As they maneuvered deeper, the realization dawned that the robbers were cornered, a reality that both thrilled and terrified them. This was their chance to resolve the situation once and for all, but the cost could still be high, and they were acutely aware of the stakes. With every footfall echoing ominously, the officers prepared for a confrontation that could change their lives forever. A single, bold decision needed to be made swiftly to protect both their own lives and those of innocent civilians. The tension reached a breaking point as officers quickly moved in unison, their collective focus sharpening in the confined space of the alley. Every sound, from the scuffle of boots to the quiet rustle of fabric, amplified the gravity of the situation. Suddenly, a flicker of movement drew their gaze. One robber peered out from behind a stack of crates, weapon raised, a look of wild desperation in his eyes. The standoff was palpable, heavy with the potential for violence, as each officer understood this chilling moment could end in tragedy or triumph. With a commanding voice, their leader called for a tactical response, ordering them to take cover and brace for impact. In that fleeting instant, their training kicked in, a lifeline amidst the chaos, allowing them to think clearly under pressure while concealed behind the alley's jagged corners. The air crackled with uncertainty, and the officers' hearts pounded in their chests, attuned to the rhythm of the unfolding duel between order and chaos. The moment hung in the balance as officers crouched low, minds racing. Each heartbeat echoed the gravity of what lay ahead, a culmination of fear and determination. With signals exchanged silently, they readied themselves, aligning their strategies for the inevitable confrontation. "On my mark," their leader whispered hoarsely, maintaining a steady gaze on the robber's position. Each officer's finger twitched near their trigger, the tension building like a coiled spring. Suddenly, without warning, the robber lunged forward, aiming his weapon at the advancing officers. Instinctively, the team reacted, their focused training guiding them as they unleashed a barrage of return fire. Bullets flew as chaos erupted once again, the air thick with smoke, screams, and urgency, echoing the desperate need to reclaim control under the life-threatening circumstances. In that instant, the line between heroism and vulnerability blurred, marking a pivotal moment in the fierce struggle for safety and peace. As the shots rang out, every officer understood the gravity of their actions, knowing that every decision had life or death consequences. The chaos unfolded rapidly around them, with sounds of gunfire and shouts creating a cacophony that drowned out any sense of normalcy. The North Hollywood Shootout serves as a stark reminder of the risks faced by law enforcement while highlighting the necessity for evolution within police tactics and equipment. Through their response that day, officers forged a path to greater preparedness, ultimately striving to protect their communities more effectively. Stay vigilant and engaged as we explore the ongoing journey of law enforcement advancement. As the gunfire subsided momentarily, a tense silence blanketed the alley, broken only by the heavy breathing of the officers as they regrouped. They exchanged frightened glances, minds racing with the reality of their recent confrontation and the vulnerability of the situation. This pause, however brief, allowed their instincts to recalibrate, the urgent need for communication surged to the forefront. Officers began relaying tactical updates through their radios, attempting to assess the condition of all units involved in the chaotic exchange. The urgency in their voices reinforced the reality that they faced a heightened level of danger. It was apparent that the robbers were not just heavily armed, they were also shrewd in their maneuvers, capitalizing on their surroundings to maintain the upper hand. As the officers formulated their next moves, a strategy emerged, a coordinated push to reclaim control not just of the alleyway but of the entire neighborhood. The transformation of this street from a normal civilian corridor to a scene of overwhelming violence was stark and chilling, emphasizing the thickness of tension in the air as they braced for what might come next. Every decision was critical, the officers must act quickly yet deliberately, understanding that this was not just a routine operation, it was a fight for their lives, the lives of their colleagues, and the safety of innocent bystanders still in danger. Every officer felt the adrenaline coursing through their veins, driving them forward as they relied on their training to overcome instinctual fear. The atmosphere shifted, determination fueled their actions, transforming hesitation into momentum. They unified their strength, readying themselves for the inevitable confrontation that lay ahead. With a commanding rallying cry, their leader instilled a sense of purpose among them, reinforcing the collective mission to safeguard their community while neutralizing the threat presented by the robbers. As they moved, a gradual sense of focus overtook the chaos. They tuned into the sounds around them, listening for any sign of the robbers. The alley, now a hostile battleground, held shadows that could conceal danger at any moment. Every flicker of movement heightened their senses, making them acutely aware of the stakes. One officer signaled a shift in formation, indicating they were closing in on their targets. The previously scattered fragments of fear were replaced with a shared resolve to restore order. Each officer readied their weapon, remembering the aim, first and foremost, to protect the innocent. As they pressed forward, the officers could feel the adrenaline mixing with a deep sense of responsibility. Every corner might yield either a threat or an opportunity. The alley's dim light seemed to close in around them, intensifying the tension as they enshrouded themselves in silence, a quiet determination settling among them. They communicated silently, exchanging glances that spoke volumes about their resolve. Suddenly, a voice crackled over the radio, directing them to hold their positions. Intelligence suggested the robbers were regrouping, planning their next desperate move. Officers braced themselves, tightly gripping their weapons, attuned to the impending chaos. In that weighty silence, a single decision could shift momentum. Patience became paramount as they waited for the right moment to act. Fighting fear head-on, their focus sharpened with every heartbeat, the stakes crystallizing into a stark reality. They could not afford to fail. As tension mounted, the officers instinctively adjusted their grip on their weapons, aware that any moment could erupt into violence again. They leaned against the cool, gritty brick wall of the alley, taking a collective breath to steady themselves amidst the uncertainty. In the distance, sirens wailed as reinforcements prepared to close in, but their immediate concern was on the threat directly in front of them. Every creak, every whisper of wind became amplified, creating an atmosphere charged with potential danger. Behind them, the faint sounds of civilians slowly emerging from their hiding places reminded them of the stakes, innocent lives resting on their ability to act decisively. The radio crackled once more, revealing snippets of frantic communication from nearby units, confirming that law enforcement was beginning to encircle the area. "We need to make a move before they set another trap," an officer murmured, his voice barely above a whisper, reflecting the urgency intertwining with their resolve. Another officer nodded, fully aware that they were backed into a corner, both strategically and emotionally, prompting the need for bold action. With a final silent exchange of glances, an unspoken agreement to protect their own and the bystanders, the leader of the team made the call to advance. "On my command, we push forward. Stay alert, stay together," he instructed, reinforcing their unbreakable bond as a unit. The officers nodded, adrenaline surging through them as they braced for what lay ahead. The moment felt pivotal, crystallizing the essence of their mission. They were no longer merely police officers but guardians of their community, standing firm against a rising tide of violence. "Go," he commanded, and they surged forward together, plunging into the depths of the alley, ready to confront whatever danger awaited them. As they pressed further into the dimly lit alley, the officers instinctively moved with heightened caution, acutely aware of the less-than-ideal circumstances surrounding them. Each step was deliberate, guided by the training that had prepared them for moments like this. The weight of their responsibility for their community now rested heavily on their shoulders. The shadows around them danced ominously, creating an ever-present threat as they silently navigated the environment with their weapons drawn. Suddenly, a loud crash ahead jolted everyone to attention, causing a collective pause, their hearts racing at the prospect of an imminent confrontation. "Stay sharp," their leader murmured, signaling for the team to maintain focus, his eyes scanning for any clue of movement. Each heartbeat echoed through the alley as they transitioned from anxious anticipation to resolute determination, committed to restoring order and ensuring that no further harm came to innocent lives. With tactical precision, the officers coordinated their approach, readying themselves to face whatever lay just beyond the next intersection. The alleyway pulsated with tension as the officers advanced in tight formation, their senses heightened to the potential danger lurking just ahead. With silent hand signals, they communicated important positions and plans, fully committed to overwhelming the robbers. The air felt thick with apprehension, each breath taken in sync with the collective heartbeat of the team. They approached a corner, and an officer leaned in close, his voice steady yet intense. "On three, we breach," he whispered, knowing that their next move could mean the difference between chaos and resolution. As they prepared to spring into action, the atmosphere shifted, an electric charge cascading around them. 1, 2, 3, their leader counted down, and they surged forward, bursting around the corner with determination and purpose. The moment of confrontation had arrived, and they were ready to reclaim control of their community. As the officers exploded into the open area, their instincts and training guided them into action. Scanning their surroundings, they quickly assessed the landscape that had transformed into a makeshift battlefield. They spotted the robbers, huddled behind an abandoned vehicle, desperately preparing for the next wave of confrontation. "Maintain your positions," their leader shouted, using hand signals to indicate the best approach. Every soldier in blue was well aware that timing was critical. They couldn't afford to let the robbers regain the upper hand. Stealing their nerves, the officers took cover behind nearby structures, rifles at the ready, their hearts pounding with resolve. Their environment suddenly became a game of strategy and survival, each officer aware of their duty to safeguard the lives of the civilians surrounding this volatile scene. With the echoes of their breathing mingling with the distant sounds of chaos, a collective determination filled the air, binding them closer together. "Now!" the leader barked, and the officers advanced, bursting into action with a united front as they pressed forward into the fray. As the officers honed in on their targets and diverse tactics were employed, the atmosphere thickened with anticipation and tension. One officer executed a tactical maneuver, flanking to the side while communicating silently with his teammates. Each officer understood that surprise was crucial. The robbers, realizing their cover was dwindling, began to panic, unleashing a hail of bullets in a final desperate bid. "Keep your heads down," their leader shouted, urging them to stay grounded and focused amidst the chaos. The contrasting sounds of gunfire and shouts echoed against the buildings, painting a vivid picture of the struggles unfolding. With a synchronized effort, they advanced, ducking low behind anything that could provide shelter. Every instinct kicked in as they prepared to make their presence known, the weight of their responsibility hanging heavily in the air. This mission was more than just about restoring order, it was about safeguarding lives caught in the crossfire. Identifying openings, the officers pressed on, ready to engage and neutralize the threat once and for all. In that critical moment, they exemplified unwavering courage, aware that the success of their actions held the potential to shift the tide of chaos overwhelming their community. The officers advanced with renewed urgency, their minds focused on the objective, neutralizing the threat without further endangering innocent lives. Each footstep was calculated, echoing against the concrete as they closed in on the robbers' position. Shadows danced ominously across the alley walls, heightening their senses as they instinctively moved in sync. With every breath, tension filled their lungs, and they steeled themselves for what was likely an intense confrontation. Suddenly, a faint rustling sound emerged from the shadows, prompting their leader to signal for silence. Anticipation surged as they prepared for the moment of truth, ready to confront the robbers that had wreaked havoc on their community. Their hearts beat in unison, each officer understanding the weight of the risks they were about to take. With a deep breath, their leader issued the command, "On my mark, we make our move." The intensity of the moment was palpable, the air charged with both fear and resolve. The officers marshaled their will, readying themselves for the confrontation they had rehearsed countless times in training scenarios. The alley, now fraught with uncertainty, felt more oppressive than ever, shadows casting an eerie gloom that seemed to swallow the light. As they waited, every sound became amplified, the distant sounds of sirens blared in the background like a haunting reminder of the stakes. The urgency of the moment propelled their collective focus tighter, the distance between them and the robbers narrowing with each passing second. They would face unknown challenges, with adrenaline coursing through their veins, but their commitment to the mission outweighed the fear. "Move out," their leader commanded, and the team propelled themselves forward into the darkness, the culmination of their training and resolve driving them through the threshold of chaos into the final stages of their high-stakes encounter. As the light began to pierce the shadows, they steeled themselves, knowing that the ultimate triumph depended on their bravery and unity in this decisive moment. As the officers surged forward, the tension thickened into a palpable energy, with their hearts pounding in sync with their determined steps. They instinctively spread out to create a wider coverage area, ensuring that no angle was left unchecked. The scene ahead was a cacophony of chaos, with debris scattered around and the distant echoes of ongoing gunfire reminding them of the stakes. Each heartbeat reminded them of their mission, to protect their community and neutralize the threat that loomed just ahead. Suddenly, a shout pierced through the air, and one officer identified the fleeting silhouette of a robber darting between the shattered remnants of a car. "There, to the left," he yelled, signaling to his team. In that moment, everything crystallized. This was their chance to regain control. Flank them, their leader commanded urgently. The directive echoed in breathless whispers as they adjusted their approach. Every officer felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through their veins, fueling their resolve as they moved to execute the plan. The urgency was electric as they balanced the need for swift action against the imperative to do so safely. The officers moved with urgency, adrenaline propelling them through the chaotic scene that sprawled before them. As they rounded another corner, the sight of the adjoining street greeted them. It was a landscape desolated by violence, littered with the remnants of the earlier confrontation. They could see bystanders peeking cautiously from behind storefronts, their faces reflecting apprehension and fear. "We have eyes on the robbers," an officer radioed in, relaying the critical information back to command, and ensuring the perimeter was securely reinforced. The fear for their fellow officers were palpable as they strategized the final movement, their determination intensifying at the thought of protecting the innocent lives tangibly at risk. With steady composure, they prepared for what could be the decisive moment, each heart beating in unison as they slowly approached the robbers' last known position, ready to restore safety to their beloved neighborhood. This resolute camaraderie was their greatest asset as they prepared to reclaim control in the face of overwhelming chaos and violence. The culmination of training, instinct, and unwavering bravery brought them to this pivotal juncture, the moment they had all been preparing for, ready to usher in an end to the turmoil that had shattered their community. In the moments that followed, the atmosphere thickened with anticipation as the officers adjusted their positions, aware that time was of the essence. The alley became a realm of uncertainty. Shadows loomed large across the wet pavement, transforming familiar surroundings into an unrecognizable battleground. Each officer silently communicated their determination through steely gazes, knowing that the fear nestled in their chests could not hinder their resolve. As they inched closer to the robbers' last known location, the adrenaline surged, sharpening their senses further. With a subtle nod, their leader prompted them to check their gear one last time, ensuring that every weapon was securely in place and that their focus zeroed in on the objective. The sense of urgency stayed alive with each passing second, cementing their resolve to restore peace and protect their community. With a swift motion, the officers aligned themselves against the alley walls, their weapons steady and poised for action. Tension draped heavily over the group, each heartbeat echoing the weight of their unanswered questions. Shadows danced across the walls, and the distant sounds of the ongoing standoff reverberated in their ears, fueling their sense of urgency. They calculated their next moves carefully, eyes scanning for the slightest hint of movement from the robbers, knowing that this was the moment they had been waiting for. "Eyes sharp, stay alert," their leader reminded them, his voice a mix of command and encouragement, reminding everyone of the critical nature of their mission. As the seconds ticked by, the resolve among the officers solidified. They were ready to act, to protect their community and themselves from impending danger that lingered just beyond their reach. In unison, they prepared for the final push, the air thick with anticipation and the possibility of resolution hanging precariously in the balance. With the collective determination surging within them, the officers took a deep breath, ready to pivot from hesitation into action. The shadows stretched ominously around them, brewing an aura of uncertainty, as they prepared for the next crucial moves. "Wait for my signal," their leader whispered, tension rippling through the air as hearts raced in synchronicity. As the officers shifted slightly, the moment felt surreal, a final transition from chaos to clarity, with the community's safety resting heavy on their shoulders. Suddenly, a loud bang erupted behind them, startling the team and shaking their focus for a brief moment. Instinctively, they turned to assess the source, realizing it was the sound of reinforcements arriving with additional firepower. Hope ignited in their hearts. They were not alone. This influx of support galvanized their efforts even more. "We're ready," an officer muttered, and the energy shifted palpably, transforming fear into a fierce resolve. Everyone tightened their grips on their weapons, eyes glinting with newfound determination. "On three," their leader barked, igniting a sense of unity as they prepared to execute a coordinated strike that would reclaim their community and silence the chaos once and for all. As they waited, the tension refused to dissipate, and every officer felt the weight of their responsibilities pressing down. "Remember our training," the leader encouraged, instilling a sense of calm amid the turmoil. When the decisive moment arrived, they charged forward together, hearts synchronized, prepared to face the crisis head-on. This was their call to protect and serve the community they cherished, ending the conflict and restoring peace. The North Hollywood Shootout serves as a pivotal chapter in law enforcement history, illustrating the necessity for tactical evolution and preparedness in the face of violence. The lessons learned that day resonate through the advancements made in police training, ensuring communities are safeguarded against future crises. Together, we reflect on the profound